everybody, Brian Goulet here of gouletpens.com, here with a special guest. This is David Oscarson of David Oscarson Pens, the man behind the pens, right? So a little background about David Oscarson. You may have been one of the first pen manufacturers that I ever actually saw in person.
I was the first one in the door. I was right by the door.
Yeah, he had his display right at the entrance of the DC Pen Show in 2009. So literally I had awareness of him and his pens going all the way back to before I literally knew anything about fountain pens. We've had an awareness of each other for 10 years.
Yep.
But just have never really kind of crossed paths. But now here we are. David was like, you're good friends with John Lane of Pilot and Amiki, and
he's told me much about you, but not yet. Just wait, I'll give you the sign when it's time.
Yeah, and it was like, you know what? It's time for us to meet. Let's talk. Let's show some pens. So David's here showing these pens to our team. And I was like, wow, he's here. He doesn't do a lot with video, but we do. So he's been generous enough to show his stunning pens to us here in person today. So we're going to talk a little bit about David's background, how you got into pens, and really the process for what makes these pens so special, because they really are kind of different than anything pens that we've ever seen. So thank you, David, for being here, first of all.
I should say, and thank you, Brian. We had a training this morning with all the associates as well, which was really, really terrific. So all the questions and answers were really great. And everyone at Goulet Pens now is completely 100% well-versed. You don't need to call me for anything. Brian and his crew will just take it from there. They know everything there is to know about me.
It's good, yeah. You can retire, basically.
I was just thinking the same thing.
There you go. But no, tell us about, you've been around for about 20 years now.
Yep,
doing
20
this
years.
thing. Yeah, so tell us, how did you get into it, and really why pens? Why these pens?
I kind of fell into the pen business. I had a retail background, and I also had a background in the jewelry industry, wholesale diamonds, and I spent a few years with a pen company that is no longer around, and I got my feet wet, and I thought, I've got a real opportunity here to marry the two together. And when I was young and dumb, I was a genius. I'm going to have a jewelry and pen theme together.
It's a great idea. No one's ever done it. I can do this.
Right before 9/11, and then lost my shirt right there.
Yeah.
The Henrik Vigstrom was the first piece we came out with, and was very popular. We had the Winter, the Crystal. I decided to marry the jewelry aspect of of my background with the writing instruments, and that's where, when we explain today what the composition is here, that's really what I want to kind of focus on. These are jewelry type writing instruments that are going to last for generations. So the 20 years has gone by quickly. I will always forever be younger than John Lane. But I am now a seasoned veteran in this industry, I guess, after 2 decades.
I would say so.
And we're celebrating our 20th anniversary this year with a new design. We'll talk about that too. So happy to answer questions, or if you want me to start talking about construction or whatever you like.
Well, there's two real key things that make your pens different from basically everyone else's. So we got to talk about those two things.
Yes.
So what are those two things, David?
It's funny you should ask. It's hilarious.
It's a bit of a setup there.
The two things that I usually talk about first before people start to lose interest and change the channel. Sorry, that was old school.
Yeah, you're a bit old school, dude.
Are the engraving patterns that we use on the pens are what we call a guilloché or a guilloché engraving technique. And what that means is that these patterns are not cast, so the silver is not poured into a casting, and they are not struck with a die either, because when you do that, the pattern tends to pilfer out towards the edges, and it makes your enamel look like it's different colors, lighter or darker, because the integrity of the stamping suffers as it gets whiter. So what we do is a diamond cut engraving, and the old way to do this back in is very reminiscent of Fabergé. And Cartier, Van Cleef, around the turn of the old century, this was very popular. The old rose engines, you would have a pattern where your diamond would go through this maze that you've created to create a pattern. You would twist that diamond, it would climb up through there, and then you would turn, and it would turn your piece, and you would bring it back down, and when you cut the other way. Now what's tricky about that is Every time you reach a piece of silver that you want to leave in high relief to separate colors or do something else, you have to stop, lift up the diamond, move it over, drop it back down, and continue cutting.
That's a lot of cuts per pen.
You will eventually get a close-up on this
little
Lord Ganesha with that paisley pattern.
Every single line is cut, yeah.
Every single one. And we do that because we want a refraction of light underneath. So we want the light to refract like facets of a diamond and sparkle. We don't polish it or remove any of that after we do the engraving. That's the first thing to remember, is the guilloché engraving is important because it gives us all the refraction of light. And the reason we want that is, your other question, we use exclusively hot enamel. And I'll just explain what that means. A hot enamel or a hard enamel is a real enamel. And the reason we have to differentiate is there are cold or soft enamels out there today that are like a resin that can be injected, or an epoxy that can be sprayed, like a clear coat, clear coat, then a color, then a clear coat. And you'll be able to feel that. When you pick up one of these pieces, not only does it feel cool to the touch, but it feels glassy, and that's a dead giveaway that that is a real enamel. I'll explain how we do that. We use crushed glass, and we use a mortar and pestle. We crush the glass, and we add metal oxides, which determine the outcome of the color of the enamel, like a stained glass. And so we mix and purify that enamel with the distilled water, pour the water off, and we have what's a little paste in the bowl. And we're not to be just old-fashioned, but to get inside the crevices of the guilloché, we use a quill, and we will place that paste into the sections of the silver that we want to enamel. We'll hang it on a wire, and it goes in the kiln where it's melted. We bring it out, and we pray that the silver, which cools and contracts faster than the glass, doesn't do just that and shatter the glass off, which it does 20% of the time. We have a 20% failure rate on the hot enameling. And that is just for one layer.
And that's not because you're bad at it. That's just the process.
It's the nature of the materials.
It's
the silver will cool and contract and faster than the glass will cool. Now the glass at that point is wobbly, like you would imagine. So we take a diamond file, and we file it down to smooth it out. Then we build the enamel back up, refire it, and refile it 3, 4, 5 times per color. That's just for one color.
Now, why is that just per color? Why can't you just throw them all on there, bake it, do it thicker so it's only one time you have to do it?
And we did do that.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what happened. This sapphire blue is a great example on this Harlequin piece. This sapphire blue enamel has to go over 1,000 degrees to purify and melt all of the ingredients in the glass to make it translucent. If we do it cooler than that, it's an opaque enamel. What you see here, this pistachio is an opaque. We'll fire at a different temperature. But this blue has to go over 1,000. So all of the blue sections of this pen were enameled 3, 4 layers to build up to the outline of silver around it. The red enamel in this pen can only tolerate 800, 830 maximum degrees. And so if we fire that together with the blue, the copper that we add to the glass to make it red will burn, and then suddenly you have a not so pretty brown enamel. So it has to go in succession. So for the Harlequin, which has 5 colors of hot enamel, that is 4 or 5 firings per color. This cap alone, this section right here, has been in the kiln and filed down 20 different times.
Wow.
That's labor intensive.
Per pen.
Per part of pen.
Per part, per pen.
Yes. And so that's how long it takes, and it cannot be mass produced. It's all done one at a time.
Right.
Now these outlines are not soldered to the surface like a cloisonné. Like I told you, we omit those from the engraving. So those are actually the body of the pen that we have not engraved. We've cut everything else out, and then we've done that sunburst pattern underneath. So it's quite labor intensive. Those are probably the 2 things that I would say, what is unique about your collection? This is unique about our collection.
That is unique. That is time consuming.
It's a nightmare.
This isn't something that, well, and to be fair too, you know, somebody who's watching this for the first time, they're going to be like, are you doing this in your garage? Are you like some sort of mechanical genius? You work with craftsmen in England.
Yes, we have a workshop south of London. We have between 4 and 7, depending on the time of year and our workload. It's a 7-year apprenticeship required to even do this kind of work.
Wow.
And they are all done one at a time, start to finish. All the components now.
Literally with like mortar and pestle and like little hammers and chisels and files.
Ting,
and
ting, 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 like you're thinking, like the workshop. That's
right.
that's literally what it is.
Process probably hasn't changed much in several hundred years.
And so, it's an old process, and the
Mm-hmm.
beauty is this is now silver and glass.
Mm-hmm. And that's it.
In 300 years, it's going to look it's going to need a polish.
You get polished a little bit. Silver
After
might
that,
tarnish a bit. Yeah.
It's going to tarnish, but it'll have a nice patina when you polish it, and
Right.
it's going to look just like that.
Wow.
Now, some of them don't look just like that 10 years later because sometimes we have accidents. We should probably talk about that,
no.
right? If this drops on the pavement, it will shatter because it is glass.
Right.
And we have a lifetime warranty. That's my lifetime, so we'll see how long I'm around.
Right.
But we don't charge for repairs.
Wow.
Because it's a service that we have to offer. People are very careful. Folks, you gotta be careful. Don't throw it on the floor.
Yes.
But you cannot take this into your local jeweler and say, could you please re-enamel my sapphire blue on this pen?
Yeah, they'll look at you like you're crazy.
They can't.
They can't do
We
it.
can strip it with an acid one time.
Wow.
The acid is so strong that on the second time it goes straight through the silver and will dissolve it. So if that happens, we have to recut the part. But
Oh my gosh.
there are very few that get damaged each year, maybe, I don't know, a dozen, 15 pieces a year.
Wow.
And so we
Still sounds
just
like a
take
lot
care
to
of it.
me, but
It takes
But you've been doing this for 20 years, so there's a number of these pens out there.
it takes a long time. It takes a long time for repair. The
Right.
price is right, but you
This
got to be
isn't just
patient with
a
us.
1 to 2 week swap out.
It's
This is
several
a-
months, 5, 7, 9 months for repair.
Wow.
Sometimes over a year, depending on how difficult it is.
Wow.
So
But you'll make it right. You'll
make it
stand
right.
behind it.
even if it's a new piece.
Wow. It's incredible.
The nib, like we said, is 18 karat. I don't know if we
Mhm.
talked about that.
Haven't gotten into that
Heidelberg.
yet. Yeah.
Fine, medium, and broad, and we know several people who can customize nibs. You do too, I'm sure,
Mhm.
for
Yeah,
your special
absolutely.
orders.
It can be done. Mhm.
Filling system is kind of interesting. Standard European cartridge comes in the this is packaging right here. I don't know if we can see that. It's a burlwood box with black trim. You've got the cradle here, little sleeve, and then inside you've got the cartridges that just snap on the end of the stem of the feeder right inside here.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
then
standard international is what the
Standard
term we use for
international.
that. Yep.
Perfect.
So pretty common.
there's a converter that will slide right onto the same stem right here, little piston. You're
Mhm.
familiar with that.
Absolutely.
Also, nice feature, you can use an eyedropper
Okay.
to fill the pen. It's a gigantic reservoir.
It is, yeah.
There's a little O-ring that fits right here on these threads, and a secondary O-ring down here in the box if you want to insert that in these threads to keep your gripping section clean. So
And see-
double seal.
And see now, for most of our audience, normally when you have a metal pen like this, you can't eyedropper convert it because it's some kind of chrome plating, whatever, it'll corrode. But this is solid sterling silver.
Solid sterling silver.
it won't-
Most of the inks are water-based anyway, and so it's
Mhm.
not really an issue.
Yeah, it hasn't been for 20 years.
You just
at
got to
least.
really like that color.
Right. Exactly.
Because it's a big
Exactly.
reservoir that
You'll
we
have-
do
you're
make.
committed for a while.
For you non-Brian Goulet people out there, we do
Plug my
make-
ears. Go
Yes,
ahead.
we make a rollerball version of everything in our collection. There you go.
Fair enough.
And we offer a service that down the road, if they come to their senses and decide, oh,
I made a mistake.
we
I made a huge mistake.
we can make that switch down there. We offer that a year, a month, whatever it is. We
Okay.
can convert that to a fountain pen, which is really the prettier way to show off the piece.
Well, you know where I fall in that camp.
You already
here,
told me,
Tom
so
Dennis.
that we weren't even gonna do that. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
There's somebody out there who's going to appreciate that.
And that's okay. That's okay. No judgment. We do sell a couple roller balls here. That's all right.
Same here.
Very cool. So let's talk about some of the theming of these pens because
Sure.
Obviously you have some amazing colors. The techniques that are used to make them are incredibly unique. But even beyond that, what's so interesting to me is really the personal kind of stamp that you put on these with the design. Just hearing your presentation and understanding it a little bit deeper than I have before, you really do a good balance of putting your own personal inspiration, very much an artisanal kind of craftsmanship undertone to your whole
Sometimes that's the good news, sometimes
Yeah.
that's the bad news. It depends on whether you like the design or not, I guess.
Right, but I mean, you're not making 10,000 pens. I mean, these are all numbered limited editions, relatively small quantities here.
Yes.
So you can go a little narrower on the theming, but you're always cognizant of, is this going to appeal worldwide to, essentially collectors who are looking for something, to have a connection to the pen, to you, whatever
I think
that might
that's the
be.
word.
Yeah.
I think the connection is the word.
Yeah, absolutely.
And sooner or later, most of our fans, we come together and
they will interact with you at some
somehow.
point, yeah.
It could be telephone. It could be at a store event, at a pen gathering, pen show, because there's a connection. This is an emotional product, and it is made with tender, loving care, and the themes vary. Many of these themes, there will be, well, let's talk about the one that we're creating right now that doesn't exist yet.
Sure.
Is a tribute to Carl Milles, famous Swedish sculptor, studied under Saarinen. Saarinen did LaGuardia and the St. Louis Arch, and Milles, there's Milles Garden in Stockholm. He did the Hand of God. In St. Louis on Market Street, you will see the largest Milles fountain in the U.S., and it is a man and a woman just about to embrace. It is the marriage of the waters. It is the confluence, the Mississippi and Missouri rivers where they join. So this has double meaning. This celebrates our 1-year anniversary for Veronica and me. It is also a direct connection from St. Louis to Stockholm, which is where I grew up, incidentally. I speak Swedish. My family is from Stockholm. And so you'll see many Swedish themes. This particular one will be very artsy. It'll be much like the Blackwater Dragon or the snake that we did with no clip. And Veronica happened to do all of the line art drawings for the pen, which you're going to love. They're perfect. And you have to take a look how she made herself out and how I look on the pen. That's kind of a fun little
undertone there.
Preview. So on that particular piece, we'll be blending some enamels between teal and blue, which is a kind of an interesting process that we haven't really done because of the temperature variances.
Yeah, that's a
so stay tuned on that one. We're waiting for the first sample to come.
Okay.
But there are several Swedish themes. The Henrik Wigström, the Carl Linnaeus, the Valhalla, Alfred Nobel, Sancta Lucia, and Raoul Wallenberg. And so those are very close to my home. There are other American-based themes, like the Lewis and Clark was great. You know, the trail that started in St. Louis went all the way to Fort Clatsop, Oregon, and back, with the map of the Louisiana Purchase and their signatures. And as a follow-up to that, the Golden Spike collection, which has all the different states, you know, a Union Pacific out of Omaha, and then, of course, Central Pacific, Jupiter the engine out of Sacramento, where they met in Promontory Summit, Utah. That was really cool. All of the legislature for the state of Utah was signed with the Golden Spike earlier this year.
That's cool.
Which they had a great event for us out there. We went to the commemoration, the ceremony. Governor was there. It was really, really a nice thing.
Wow. So sometimes you'll have themes that are commemorating an anniversary of some kind that you can connect to. Sometimes.
This is our 20th anniversary this year also. So that's another anniversary.
There you go.
As a company. Or sometimes we did the Magna Carta. We didn't talk about that.
Right.
With the quote in Latin, you know, Article 39, no free man shall be taken or seized without due cause, fair trial, and a jury of his peers. Or this one right here in front of you for a medical community. This is the Alexander Fleming, which I think is really, that was so fun to do. On the cap there, you'll see, is an exact replica. You medical people out there will remember this from your textbooks. That is an exact facsimile of Fleming's petri dish on which he discovered penicillin. It's really cool. It looks artsy, but it's in actuality an exact copy. Underneath, you have all of the yeast and mold, and the clip is an inoculating loop. which is a wire that be twisted with a loop on the end. You dip it in the bacteria and put it in the 4 quadrants of your Petri dish to watch it grow. The barrel, again, has his signature in high relief like a prescription. And on the gripping section is the chemical compound formula for penicillin.
Right.
So it's a nod to the medical community, but it's also to a person who changed it, which I think was significant. And that's been really fun for our medical crowd. They've really appreciated that.
I'm noticing a kind of a theme throughout all of your pens of there's usually multiple layers and multiple meanings that all intertwine.
We're gilding the lily, I know.
Yeah, but I mean that's kind of interesting because most other companies coming out with a limited edition, they might centralize it around one thing. And they, pick one person and take a couple elements and put it on there, and it's a nice design.
Not to make things too busy. I mean, to keep things simple, there's something to be said for that.
Sure.
However, then you've got the koi collection here, which, in my opinion, that really shows off our craft really, really well. With all of those ripples underneath, and then the high relief pieces of metal, even those little bubbles, are left in high relief. It's really kind of amazing. That's really a masterpiece. And all of the scales on the koi fish, I just think that really epitomizes what we do really well. And it's artistic. It's beautiful.
Absolutely.
It's got that bamboo clip. It's got the Japanese symbol for koi fish on the top. And then our name on the rondel of the cap, of course, is in Japanese characters. So we think about it.
Yeah.
Each gripping section has a different design. Each clip has a different design, and that's intentional. We want to give some people something to talk about also. It is beautiful, but also when somebody sees a creation like this, they will most likely react and say, what is that?
Yeah, and you learn more about it, and you're like, what is this element? And you're like, oh my gosh, everything on this pen was intentional and is there for a reason. And in my opinion, it's almost like a combination lock of different meanings that you have kind of put in place.
Well, we try not to be too obvious. We like for the Fleming, it doesn't just say in bold letters, Alexander Fleming on the pen, like a brand.
Yeah.
It takes a little bit of explanation.
Yes.
And we were talking about this earlier, that guys generally like to educate each other. That's a nice way of putting it, right? They like to school their friends on something historical or something intelligent or meaningful. And so the Fleming would be a good example of that. Oh, don't you remember Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin, blah, blah, blah. This is and tell a little story. And so it's a little piece of history that you can have to carry around with you, and also that's going to last for generations that you can pass down. So if there's something that resonates with someone, that has even more meaning than just being a beautiful silver pen.
Sure, yeah, you'll have a connection to whatever the career that somebody had, the influence it had, where it's come from,
heritage.
Maybe your heritage. Yeah, exactly.
I agree completely.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways you could connect to each of these. So, every single pen obviously is different colors, but the engraving too. There's a lot of different patterns of engraving. I'm very intrigued. How do you decide? I mean, you're coming up with themes of the pens. You're coming up with the colors and the shape, like all these different things. But then it's like, we had to put this on video because there's so much detail. You need to show, literally the patterns. You have to design the engraving, to go on with it. How do you do that?
As you would imagine, you have a concept, and then you start to think of different elements. Like, okay, so I can see this would be a key element to this concept. And maybe this.
Right.
And then maybe, and then there's like 50 different things on a pen. And you have to kind of cut it down. But then you, also with our canvas, it isn't like a painting where it's two-dimensional, where whatever is in color, and where you have a black background, we actually can go straight through. You're looking through in the background also, like with this koi piece, or like with the Fleming, with the engraving pattern underneath. Do we want to do that in high relief? Do we want that showing in metal, like we did on the Lewis and Clark barrels? The Louisiana Purchase is all in metal. On the Golden Spike, it's covered in enamel. There's a different guilloché pattern for each state.
Wow.
So Do we want to do the koi fish underneath the enamel, have them swimming underneath the water? Maybe. No. Do we want them raised? So you have to think three-dimensionally also. What do we want the background to be, and then where do we break it? What do we want the foreground to be? What gets colors of enamel? What's the foreground and what's the background? And then you've got the clip. You have options on the crown, simple crown like this, or you've got the Church of the Holy Sepulchre here on the Jacques de Molay for the Knights Templar, the two knights on horseback, or do you do something like we've got the koi fish here on the top, or the trident on Lord Ganesha. So we want it to look pretty also without being just too much. And I will say this too, that at the outset, a lot of our initial viewers of the collection will say, well, I like black or very dark blue.
Right.
And sometimes we do that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you do a black and sometimes a very dark blue. However, I will say that with our medium, with the guilloché work and the hot enamel, when you see these pieces in the pastels, it's just
colors.
so translucent that you'd look immediately right through to the guilloché work underneath.
Absolutely.
And the white enamel is actually not a white enamel. We have a white enamel that is pearlescent.
Okay.
This is completely translucent. What you're seeing right there is the white cut sterling.
Oh, interesting.
Right after the diamond cuts it. It is white. And so we put a clear coat of enamel glass in there, and it shines off as white.
How about that?
Not bad.
I would have thought it'd been silver.
You would think that.
Yeah, I mean,
you would think.
I'm trying to be smart.
Well, if we had polished it, if we polish it up, it would.
See,
but once it's been freshly cut, it has that white glow to it, and the refractions are just beautiful. So lately we've done a lot of white. This white celestial is kind of iconic for us. Some of your folks may have seen this before because of the sun, moon, and stars. It was the first, day-night, different cap and barrel theme that we did, and it's almost sold out. We've got a couple pieces left in white out of the 88, and that's it.
That's it.
But this came out several years ago, and just because it's so rememberable, I think is kind of iconic for us. But anything in the hot enamel and the guilloché work will generally go towards us, but the Celestial and some of the others, like the Jacques de Molay, people will know, oh, that's one of their pieces.
Well,
We've been doing it for a while now.
Even the number of pieces that you'll have is meaningful. You'll pick the number based on some sort of deeper meaning too. So maybe just touch on a couple of those, because I'm sure people are curious, how many of these pens really are there?
Right. Some, like on the Magna Carta, there are 800. That was the 800th anniversary of the Magna Carta with King John. The Jacques de Molay we did in the monochromatic gray and white, 700 pieces for the 700th anniversary, which was Friday the 13th of October, 1307.
Okay.
That's when de Molay was arrested by the King of France and King Philip and Pope Clement. They conspired and arrested him under false charges. They owed so much money they could never pay. They thought, let's just kill him.
Let's just make him go away. Yeah.
They never found the treasure, that it apparently made its way to the New World, and et cetera, et cetera. So this is all a lot of Masonic imagery
Nick Cage found
here.
it, though, apparently.
He
National
did,
treasure,
actually,
right? Like, that's the whole backstory of the...
So they did find it. Yeah.
At least in Hollywood, yeah.
We made 700 pieces, but this special edition here, this is the last one, it's number 5 out of 13 for Friday the 13th of October, and so we will number some special editions that way.
Okay.
Fleming, one for each year that he lived, 70 pieces. Alfred Nobel, we made 63. He lived 63 years. You discovered dynamite and the Nobel Prizes. The koi piece, 88 pieces.
Okay.
That's an age more.
So it can range. It can range in numbers based on
generally
any
under
number
100, 100 or less
Okay.
on each piece. Now we'll do some special editions down the road in a special deco color or something. It might be 8 pieces or what have you. But there will usually be a reason for the number.
Okay.
The Golden Spike was 150 for the 150th anniversary, May 10th. So we try to think it out, and make it meaningful, because this is a serious piece. This is a big acquisition, a big decision, and we want it to be special, not just for the individual, but maybe for somebody else too.
Exactly, and it's an investment, right? I mean, you're putting a substantial amount of money. We haven't talked pricing or anything yet, but what's the typical price range for a pen like this?
Retail across the board, generally it's right around $5,900 on a fountain pen. This is September 2019, and that's been that way for quite some time.
Okay.
A couple $100 less for the rollerball version.
Well, that's because it's worth less than a fountain pen, so that makes sense.
Also true, though, it doesn't have the 18 karat gold nib.
Right.
So And so it's an investment, but also it is a personal connection with something or something to hand down also. And so most of the population of the world would look at something like this and say, well,
I can do a lot of other things with $5,900, you know?
Many things, 5,900 things.
Absolutely.
But for the people who care to take the time to see how these things are made and want to have something that's going to endure more than you or I,
sure.
That's what this is.
That's
and this is an heirloom piece. This was my grandfather's. This is a very special, and that's kind of what we're trying to do. So when I'm long gone, these will be somewhere, you know, Antique Roadshow or what have you.
There you go.
Museums.
That's pretty cool. Well, it's been an honor to dive into this and get to learn a little bit more about this.
This has been a long time coming. We've talked for a while, and this has been years in the making. So thank you, Brian. Appreciate you
absolutely
sharing me with your audience. That's a big deal.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I think what you've done is very unique, kind of in the pen world. You already know so many people who in the community. But yet there's so many people who have no idea what you've done, or they've maybe seen it online and don't really know.
So
you got such a great story to tell. I'm glad we were able to do that here today.
Thank you.
So thank you for coming on.
Pleasure.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everybody.
We'd love to know what you all think. Just let us know in the comments. Anything that speaks out to you, check out David's website, davidoscarson.com.
Yep.
And then, you can always ask us questions too. So be sure to like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already on YouTube. For us, thank you so much for watching.